Hey everyone, welcome back to Collecting Nolan. This is Russ, and today is another Sensational Set Sunday where we will be looking at the food issues for the years 1987 through 1989. So let's go ahead and get started. So 1987 through 1989, there's quite a few cards. So I had to we might have to do a part 3 or even a part 4. I'm not sure. But today we're only going to cover the 3 years. So starting off is Drake's. If you remember, Drake's had some back in '86 as well. This is their big hitters and super pitchers, and which was a 33 card set. Nolan is number 32. Shows all of his stats. So these were made by MSA, as are most of the products that we're going to see today. But these were also distributed on the bottom of various Drake's bakery cakes products that you could buy. So they're usually in panels, and I do have the panel. So we got the panel with Roger Clemens, Nolan Ryan, and Mike Scott. That's a pretty good panel there of pictures. And on the back, again, if you remember last week, Nolan didn't have any additional advertising on the back, but Mike Scott and Roger Clemens do. So, thought that's pretty funny. But I like these cards. I think they're pretty sweet. And these are hand cut, of course, so I just have this white border around them, whereas I don't think this card has the white border yet. Whereas this hand cut one, no white border. So that's the Drake's panel cookies. And then here's where it gets interesting for a little bit. You had Kraft Home Plate Heroes. So these were on the sides of Kraft macaroni cheese boxes. They have a blank cardboard back, and they're hand cut, of course. And I don't know whoever cut mine. They did an excellent job. I got a 10, so pretty sweet. But so with the Kraft cards, there was 48 different cards. Nolan is number 48. It tells you down here. But they came in a number of panels, like different panels. So Nolan was teamed up with quite a few different players. And I actually have some of the panels, so I'll show those to you. But before we get to the panels, there was also a Kraft sample issue of these, in which they would have a white back instead of the cardboard back. So I don't have that. So, but same front. So the Kraft panels, the first one, he was with Eddie Murray, which this is huge. So let me, I have the entire box. So it has Nolan up here with Eddie Murray on the back of the Kraft macaroni and cheese that we all loved when we were kids. So that's that one. And then he was on there with Robin Yount, and that one I do not have. But they just used the same pictures, and then Robin Yount would be over here. And then the next one, he was with Kent Herbeck, which I do have. So there's one with Kent Herbeck. So that's pretty cool. And then he was he's also on one with Roger Clemens, and then Mike Witt was also one of his partners on those panels. I do not have the Clemens or the Witt, but those are the Kraft ones. And then still in 1987, we also had the M&M's Star Lineup cards, in which there were 24 total cards in the set. And these were found on, I guess, different packages of M&Ms, but here's the back. So it has some of his career highlights down there. Became the first pitcher in Major League history to surpass 4,000 strikeouts. And he holds the record with 4,277 as of this picture being taken. Responsible for 5 Major League no-hitters, which at that time, yeah. So there's that. But then those were also with panels. But there was only one guy that he was paired with, and that was Steve Sax. So there's the M&M panel with Steve Sax in the back. I like these food issue cards. I just think they're unique, and I like advertising on them. So following the M&Ms, there was also Mother's Cookies, as before. So this is the 1987 one. And this was a 28 card set. Nolan was number 8 of that 28 card set. And these were I guess these were given out at the Astrodome on July 17th, 1987. So pretty sweet card there. And then finally, for 1987, you had the Ralston Purina set. Hold on, I'm pulling up my computer. I'm sorry. And these were given out in serials, as the previous versions were that we saw in previous years. Here's the back. It's kind of hard to read, but let's see if I can. But these came in like specially marked boxes of cereal. There was also an uncut sheet. So there was 15, I believe, of these. 15? Yes. There are 15 of these cards. And you could get them in an uncut sheet based off of a instant win giveaway. Or I guess you can mail in and get the uncut sheet. But those cards that came on the uncut sheet were a little bit different than this one. And I'll show it to you. So cards that could be cut from the uncut sheet didn't have the label up there. So you can see it has 1987 collector's edition. But the ones that were from the uncut sheet did not have that. But it looks like they both used the same back. It might look slightly different on the back. It seems like this one's a little darker as far as like the cardboard. Where this one's a tad lighter. Both in red ink. And both kind of hard to read. So I thought that was cool. I didn't really know why there was a difference here, but now after getting ready for the show, I found the reason why. So that's really cool. So that ends it for 1987. And then in 1988, there was really only 2 food issue cards. There was first one was the 1988 Mother's Cookies, of course. So it's got a nice photo of Nolan there on a knee, taking a knee. And this one was also a 28 card set. Nolan's number 8 again. And this one was given away July 26, 1988 at the Astrodome. So, I don't know how many of these are floating around. Same is said with the 87 issue. They're not that hard to get a hold of, so I imagine that there's quite a number of them, but I don't really know the print run of them because they were just given out at that giveaway. So, but pretty cool card nonetheless. And the Mother's Cookies always have these rounded edges, unless it's from a hand cut panel, which we'll talk about later on, probably in when we either talk about Mother's Cookies or when we talk about the other food issues in the later years here, because that's when Mother's Cookies started distributing like these hand-cut, uncut panels, I guess, that you could later cut out yourself. So for 88, that was Mother's Cookies. And then the second one for 88 was this Nestle Dream Team, which was a 44 card set, also made by MSA. And you can find these on, I guess, specially marked packages of Nestle products. And then in the back here, what's that say? So it just talks about him being the all-time strikeout leader. Highest total since in 5 seasons, he struck out 300. Just gives some career highlights and some, key notes there. But these were printed in Canada, apparently, which I just learned right now. And Nolan was number 43 of 44 in this set. So that's 1988. And then for 1989, there was only 3 cards. And the first one, let me get it here. The first one was this Franklin Caramel series, which is an unlicensed product. And Nolan is number 7. And I don't know too much about this. I don't know if this was like, I don't know if, I assume Franklin Caramel Company actually exists. It says manufactured by Franklin Caramel Company, Chicago, 1989. I'm just going to assume that they exist, but I don't know too much about this card actually. But it was cool. It was arty, so I picked it up. So that was the first one from 1989. And then the second one from 1989 is this King B disc. And basically these were like, okay, I remember going to like the local, just the local mom and pop store when I was a kid. And they would have beef jerky in these little disc-like hockey puck containers, and it was like almost like a powdered version of beef jerky. I guess they're trying to market it as kind of like snuff. I don't know, but I do remember partaking in some of that stuff. It was like very powdery and would last like 10 seconds in your mouth. It would like dissolve as soon as you ate it. But these were distributed in those packs, so they're really small, like 2 3/8 inches. And that's the back air by King B, and Nolan was 10 of 24 discs in that. And then finally, to end this Sensational Set Sunday, we have another Mother's Cookies from 1989, and this is the first one where Nolan is in his Rangers outfit uniform, because he was traded, of course. This is number 2 of 28. And I couldn't see any information about when these were distributed or how. I assume it was probably like some team giveaway night at the stadium, just like the other ones. So, but TCDB did not have that information. And that's basically, I got all of my information from the TCDB, which it's just a great resource. It's a great checklist to have. Because they have both licensed and unlicensed cards on there. So good stuff. But that ends Sensational Set Sunday for this Sunday. And I'll probably try to go up to like 1993 next week, just depending on how many cards there are. I didn't want to get too crazy this week with like 30 some cards, because it was a lot last week. I know that. So let me know what you guys think of all those food issues that we saw so far. Which one's your favorite? Which ones you don't like? Or, just any comments in general are great. If you know anything in addition to those cards that I may have missed, please feel free to let me know too, because it's fun learning about this stuff. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.